Welcome back to WD Magiccast for the week of June 23rd, 2024. This is episode 261. WD Magiccast, the show about the mouse, the Marvels, the galaxy, and beyond. I'm your host, Matthew Graken. In this week's show, live from a hidden unit headquarters in London, we will be talking Doctor Who, the season recap of season 1 of the 2023 era of Doctor Who with the one and only Ken Deep. And we'll be breaking down the season and giving our general overall thoughts of what this quote unquote new season of Doctor Who has brought in us. Don't forget to join the conversation on our social medias, where we can be found pretty much everywhere at WD Magiccast on Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you'd like to call it, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, YouTube, you name it, we are there. Particularly join our YouTube channel, where we will be going live a few times this summer from different locations. So you want to make sure you follow us there as well. And you could also listen to the show on YouTube as well for all you people that like to listen to shows there. Make sure to check out our TeePublic shop, where we got some cool WD Magiccast swag and stuff available for you there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, beach bags. Got a lot of great deals, a lot of sales going on. Get something cool for yourself and support your favorite podcast while you're at it. And on that bombshell, on with the show. Doctor Who has been around now for, over 60 years. I can't say I've been watching since the very beginning, but I have been watching as long as I remember. And it's always been one of my favorite shows, even whenever people didn't know what it was, back on the PBS days. And I've spoken on this show a few times about it now, since it came over to Disney Plus, and even just before it started there. And now that it's officially on Disney Plus and it's finished up its first season, I definitely feel like it's something I want to cover. And I think there's a lot of points to be brought up. And I can't think of anyone who is a better expert at Doctor Who, who's definitely probably more of an expert than I am. The one and only Ken Deep, you may remember him from episode 219. When we had him on discussing about Doctor Who coming to Disney Plus, and a lot of his thoughts there. And now he's going to grace us with his intelligence and wonderful thoughts about, or maybe negative thoughts, I don't know yet, on this latest season of Doctor Who that just wrapped up this past weekend. Ken, how are you doing? And welcome back.
Hi, Matthew. Thanks for having me back.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. I love watching your comments online, reading your comments online about what's going on in Save Doctor Who, and also the stuff coming up for Li Who.
Yeah, it's coming up as of the day of this recording, it's about 2 months away. So I suppose I should start working on creating a convention, huh?
Oh, maybe, these things come together relatively quickly and easily, right?
No, it takes a whole year, actually, and we're actually in the thick of it right now.
I can believe it, and thank you for gracing us with the little time that you have between.
No worries. Always have time for. I love talking Doctor Who. It's my favorite subject.
Oh, well, you're in the right place today. So, a few episodes ago, my co-host Dave and I. This is back on episode 258. In May. We were discussing the mid-season of Doctor Who. We talked about Church on Ruby Road, Space Babies, The Devil's Cord, Boom, and 73. And overall, we really enjoyed what we saw at that point. Dave and I, Dave, again, being a new to Doctor Who person, and myself being a longtime Doctor Who fan, we enjoyed the season at that point, and we were curious on where it would be going. I always, of course, have speculations mid-season. Okay, this is what I think so far, but the back end of the season sometimes can make or break a season. And I'm just going to come out and say it now that I love the season. I forgot to mention to you, if you would be willing, we could do give a rating of between a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, if you are okay with that.
Sure.
And then we could get into some spoilery parts after that.
I think overall, if we're defining the season as starting with Church on Ruby Road, the Christmas special where we were introduced to the 15th Doctor, played by Ncuti Gatwa. If we define that as the first episode, which Disney does, I was kind of surprised they didn't make that listed as a special as they did with the 3 David Tennant episodes. So if we start it with Church on Ruby Road and go right to Empire of Death, I would give the season, I think I would give it an 8 out of 10. And I think that the highlights outweigh a few of the lowlights. And I thought Space Babies was probably a bit corny. I got what they're trying to do. They're coming to Disney. They wanted to try to make it a little accessible to everybody. But anytime you have talking babies in a spaceship, it can come across as a bit corny. I think there was a segment of Doctor Who fans that were put off by that episode, thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is not Doctor Who," blah blah blah, which is completely wrong. I mean, it's completely within the scope of Doctor Who to have talking babies. We've had a lot of crazy things over 60 years. But I think they were hoping for something maybe more serious or a little bit darker or more mysterious or a little more hardcore science fiction. And quite honestly, that's on them for thinking Doctor Who on Disney Plus was going to be the X-Files or Star Trek Discovery or something. Like, no, it's on Disney Plus. And it's a family show. I mean, it has its moments like that, but I think there was sort of a risk taken to try to make that first one accessible, and then it immediately course corrects back to, I think, what we were expecting with the Devil's Cord, and a larger than life kind of villain, over the top, a little dash of history, throw the Beatles in for a good measure, and then it's funny, people lost their mind because there was a dance sequence in it, and I remember John Pertwee, who was the third Doctor in the early 70s, singing to a teddy bear and inspiring a labor movement. So, go figure.
Oh, I was actually, when I was talking to Dave about that, I went back to Gunfighter.
Yeah, well, there you go. The whole damn thing was a musical.
Right. So, I mean, that's, again, not new. It's something that's been around. Yes, we don't see it often. But then whenever you also have a talent like Shatu, I always mess his name up. Shati, right?
Ncuti.
Thank you.
Well, he corrected himself in a recent making of or an interview that he did where his mother told him only like a year or two ago that he had actually been mispronouncing his own name, that it's Ncuti, like there's an N sound in it, properly and ethnically. I cannot do that without sounding like I'm having some kind of stuttering problem. So I just keep it to Ncuti, which I think he would probably be perfectly happy with. But I am projecting a little.
Well, and you're probably right, especially if he's saying his own name incorrectly.
Yeah.
I remember when I worked in the Animal Kingdom, and we had some cast members that were from Africa, and how they spelled their name and how in America we would say their name, and they said, "Oh no, it's completely different," and it uses sounds that we don't use in our linguistics, like a clicking sound and stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. So I practiced it, but I still obviously couldn't get it right.
I think if human beings are sincere in their effort to try, I think that you're not going to insult the person that you are trying to say their name. If you follow me, I think if there's a sincere effort and they see that you're trying, as opposed to someone who just blows it off or says, well, that's a stupid name or something, which of course is the most ignorant thing a human being could say. But
And why would you do that?
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back to it on. You said the Devil's Chord with the dancing. How about let's see, you also had Boom and 73 Yards.
To the heart of the season, two really good back-to-back stories. Boom, of course, sees the return of Stephen Moffat, which many of us hold in very high regard. And
Absolutely.
I think Stephen Moffat does some of his best work when he's not the showrunner. And that's no disrespect to him as a showrunner, but when he's strictly the writer and someone else is, perhaps steering it a bit and crafting it and help bring it to the screen so that it's fleshed out a little bit differently. I always find it can be problematic to have someone who's the showrunner, the writer, the editor, the this, that, the other, who's wearing many hats, because you start to think to yourself, well, who's keeping that person honest? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, who's saying, well, maybe you should change that or you should do this. I would hope that you course correct before you get notes from the studio, and the episode is almost done.
Absolutely. I think that was a fantastic episode. I was actually speaking to someone recently saying how brilliant that episode was, because it took away something that the Doctor was quote unquote known for since Troughton, which was running.
Mm.
And what did the Doctor have to do in that episode? He had to
stand still.
Had to stand still, had to stay in one spot. Couldn't really use the sonic screwdriver, couldn't use anything but his mind.
Yeah. And really, isn't that the essence of Doctor Who?
Yeah. Which is what, again, we made that, I think, such a brilliant episode.
And I think if you had someone, maybe an adult friend who had Disney Plus and hasn't really been introduced to Doctor Who, I think if you just said, well, watch this one particular episode, it's a little unusual for what the show is really about, but just check it out. The performance, the story, the drama, it's all there, that even if you don't fully understand the mechanisms behind the show, you'll still be like, this is compelling. I want to see the resolution here. I want to see where this goes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And of course, in 73, you've got yourself one of the greatest things about science fiction is occasionally that part of a story that isn't fully explained to you, that allows you to project something into it. What does it all mean? What is there symbolism behind this? And of course, probably the coolest thing about it is, again, it's another sort of dark and mysterious episode, a little bit like Boom. Boom is dark for not a traditional, haunted house kind of way. It's dark because someone's about to blow themselves up.
It's like a wartime dark.
Right. It's a wartime dark where we see a more traditional, dare I say, again, for the second time in this podcast, mentioning the X-Files. The X-Files is a good old-fashioned creepy story, without it being a horror movie. It's supposed to be mysterious, and I like that. And I think great science fiction asks questions and sometimes doesn't answer them, and allows the viewer or the reader or the listener, depending on your modality, to just put a little something in there. I think the people who didn't like that have been lulled into this sort of lazy storytelling that has sort of taken over, where everything is just explained to death. What is that thing? Well, it looks like a 40-foot giant monster with brown hair on it, and it's coming our way. And it looks dangerous because its teeth are out. It's like, come on, how much more can you explain, And sometimes it's just refreshing to not have the answers.
There was something I was watching recently, and it like, okay, can you just show us and not have to tell us everything that's happening?
Hmm.
Or well, I remember a line from was Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's like, why we need a flashback from 5 minutes ago?
Right, exactly.
Uh, I enjoyed 73 yards. There was a few things that I'm still kind of actually do looking for answers for a little bit, and,
Yeah.
and that kind of, I want to say that with this season, there's one or two threads that are still dangling, but at the same
Yes.
time, that could always, we're not done yet.
Yeah, we're not done yet. The second season's in the can. The Christmas special's in the can. The second season's in the can. They're writing the third season. So yeah, we're not done yet. I mean, anybody who's been watching the show for a while knows that sometimes things don't get wrapped up as quickly as we'd like them.
Nope.
And again, there's certain frustrations with some of the audience, as you see on social media, with it. But we didn't find out about this. I know. Relax. We'll find it out sooner or later. Or maybe we won't, as we learned in the Stephen Moffat era, that some things will get tied up and some things never will, and some things will be handled by Big Finish audio productions 20
Or
years from now or something,
or Chernobyl, Chris's uh, time at the helm, that there's a lot of things that just never got tied up.
Yeah, again, it's this is Doctor Who. I mean, sometimes there's things that just don't get neatly sewn up, and it's just what happens. And you know what? We're intelligent people. We have our own head canon. We can put it all together.
To put together, there's books out there that we could read that sometimes explains things. There's audio books. There's a lot more
And,
media
and
that is available.
isn't it fun to talk with your friends about what you think it means, or spark a discussion? I mean, that was back in the day. You'd go out with friends or a date or something to a movie, and if you picked the right movie, you were talking about the movie when you were leaving. You were having a conversation. You were getting to know this person, if it was a date, let's say, or if it was just a group of friends, it would spark a conversation, and you'd be at the diner or the bar or something afterwards, chatting away about what it meant, what your feelings are about it, and that's healthy.
Yeah.
I think it would kind of be dull to walk out of a movie or turn off a TV show and just have all the answers, and just, to me, that's like empty calories,
Right. Well, even I could say for more so for the earlier Marvel stuff, that they'd always put those little teasers in the credits that make you ponder about, okay, what's happening next, what direction are we going in, and make you want to keep coming back.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's the fun of it all. I feel. Yeah.
Overall, I just realized I never gave my rating for the entire season. I may be a little biased. I may be, a little more on the sentimental, and I'm giving it a 9.
Wow. Okay.
I could see where you're going from with an 8, and I think it is completely justified, and I almost find it hard for me to justify myself at a 9, but I can't go with an 8 either.
Okay.
Maybe because I enjoyed it so much.
But that's it. You're going by your feelings, and if that's what your gut tells you, then that's what you should do. I've been a Doctor Who fan for a really long time, and so what happens is my initial reaction is one rating, and then the passage of time will also allow me to compare it to other things, for it to not have that newness and freshness that creates an artificial sense of excitement. Uh, Artificially meaning that I have a friend. I've known him almost my entire life. He's one of those guys. The last movie he saw was the greatest movie ever. So every time he would go to see a new Batman movie or a new superhero movie, that was the best superhero movie ever. Yeah, but you said that about the last one. And there's like this bias of recency. This
Mhm.
It was the newest thing. I just saw it. I just had this experience. I just had these feelings. And so those feelings are overwhelming any previous feelings, which is funny because one day he watched the first Superman movie with Christopher Reeve from 1978 on DVD, and he came back to me and he said, "That was the greatest superhero movie I ever saw." And I'm like, well, that's a big compliment because that movie is really, really old and it still holds up. So
we in a film class at the school I work in, we played that for the students, and we on the teacher end were all kind of like, huh, okay, it's we remember it slightly different than what we're seeing it now. Not saying that it's bad, but just some of the gimmicks that they put in there, or particularly the special effects, because, well, I mean, it's from 1978. What do you want? It those don't translate to what we're used to seeing in a superhero movie now.
Yeah.
But
the dialogue is crackling. The performances are excellent.
Oh, yes.
There's so many other things that override the fact that it's, a blue screen or something.
Yeah. Or Christopher Reeve's voice dubbed over on a 21-year-old person who's supposed to be 15.
Which is, by the way, a neat trick, and also I think done in Excalibur, and it's an old school trick.
That's nothing new.
It's a sleight of hand done by directors.
But anyway, but yeah, for me, it was, I enjoyed the season, and I don't remember, I don't remember it, but I remember it not having such a weight that I could just sit back and enjoy episodes that were just, Shotzi brought such a life back to the Doctor that I haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, I'm really blown away by Ncuti. I think I fell in love with him being the Doctor when he did a little short. I think we might have talked about this the last time I was on, because this was something that came out around the time that it was, first announced that it was coming to Disney. He did this little short for Disney's YouTube channel, official YouTube channel, where he kind of does a little primer about what Doctor Who is all about. It's only a couple minutes long, and he's talking about, that he's a time traveler, he's from another planet, he travels in the TARDIS, and he's just doing all the basics. It's Doctor Who 101.
Right.
His enthusiasm and his personality came through in those couple of minutes in the same way that I saw Matt Smith, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe a little bit before he became the Doctor. And I thought to myself, this guy, he's got the exact right energy for this. Like, I knew from experience, this guy's nailed it. And I haven't even seen him play the Doctor yet. Like,
right.
He just has that charisma and energy. And I recently read something, and it's really stuck with me. And I feel so bad that I can't properly give attribution to this. But someone said, the Doctor is your favorite teacher back in school, right? That teacher that has a passion for learning, that inspires you to want to learn, not because of the subject, just from their personal passion for whatever it is they're showing you. If you have a science teacher that loves science, even if you're not into science, you're going to listen to them because, quite often, just because they're so moved or passionate or thoughtful about this. Like, wow, look at this. Watch as I do this.
Yes.
Or a music teacher. Imagine having a music teacher that inspires you to want to learn to play an instrument, right? That means that their love translates to you. And that's what the Doctor is supposed to do. The Doctor is supposed to be that person that when you watch them, you want to go have an adventure. You want to go explore.
Yeah.
And I think Ncuti nails that. And we're really lucky.
Oh, absolutely. I as I mentioned whenever we last talked, that I wasn't very familiar with his work and stuff before, so he was brand new to me, and it did not take me long at all to just fall in love with his rendition of the Doctor, and just the energy, the life, it's infectious, and I feel like really comes across the screen.
Yeah.
And
And there's been a trend in Doctor Who to have sort of maybe a little more thoughtful or introspective kind of doctor, and that made sense after the Time War and losing his people and all that. So
sure,
Christopher Eccleston played him in a certain way, and there was this sort of even Peter Capaldi, he did this sort of thing where it was
like a weight.
it wasn't happy-go-lucky the way Matt Smith was, let's say, and that's great because we want the Doctor to change. And what I like, and I think this is a product of this bi-generation that we were introduced to, is that that could be the excuse for this, right? Like that he had this sort of what would you call it? Like sort of new lease on life,
Yes.
from whatever that happened. This is actually an unusual occurrence for him to feel so enthusiastic. And it works perfect in the context of they're trying to introduce this show to a brand new generation of fans. So if he came out being all dark and mysterious, some of the kids might be like, what's going on with this guy? Like, why is he such a jerk? But the fact that he's got a lust for life, hopefully that's what happened with Matt Smith. Matt Smith brought this younger audience to his era of the show because he was the old soul in a young body,
Yes. And again, that goes back to I enjoyed Matt Smith's take on it because he also had that. It's almost like a childlike wonder to everything.
Yeah. And I don't think Ncuti's got the childlike wonder.
No.
But there's still that sense of there's a newness, a freshness.
Yes.
To his performance, and I'm all there for it.
Yeah, I was blown away. I'm very ecstatic, and with the first season done, I can't wait for more, and I hope. And I saw this on someone's comments as well that he stays around for more than the 2-season cycle.
I think he will. I'm pretty sure that he'll be there for that third season. I think the break is deliberate to allow this emerging superstar, and let's face it, that's what he's going to be. I mean, Sex Education was a breakout. He was in Barbie. Damn well they're going to do a Barbie 2, which will be ginormous.
Oh, absolutely.
And of course now he's in the Disney universe, which basically means he's conquered the world. So and for all we know, Disney's like, we got to get this guy on and fill in the blank, like whatever project they may have in the pipeline for him. So
we got this other, animated movie coming up. We need a voice. Let's add.
Yeah. So, let's steer back a little bit because there's something I want to cover with the season, and why, maybe why I knocked a couple points off, or gave it an 8, let's say, as opposed to a 9 or a 10. One of the challenges Doctor Who has always had, especially in the modern era, is there's the sort of 2-part finale. And it always seems like the setup is far more fantastic than the payoff. And I think if there's a knock on this season, I think the knock is that, there was this buildup about Ruby's origins, and Ruby's origin was very mundane, and deliberately so. Russell T Davies said, I did that deliberately. I didn't want it. I didn't want this huge buildup. And I think that if that's the case, then maybe you shouldn't have harped on it so much. Like, it should still be there. It should be a reoccurring theme, but you built it up pretty damn high, and the payoff was just kind of blah. I mean, I'm happy for the character that, spoiler alert, she meets her birth mother, and they're still dangling out there as the father, which, still could be, and this is why we don't know about these payoffs. For all we know, he could be the arch villain of the second season. Like anything can happen. So
all we know it's the Master. I mean,
right,
or the meddling monk.
yes, as long as it's not the Ronnie, because that's one of the jokes that you saw me post on my page. Every single time
it's
there's
always
a
the Ronnie.
female villain, it's always the Ronnie until it's not.
It's what's the one in for Marvel? It's always Mephisto, and until it's not.
Until it's not, yeah.
But yes, I think at this point we could get into spoilers. If you haven't finished watching the season, pause here.
Yes, stop now.
Yep, go finish watching the season and join us back in. Yeah. But yeah, I did not mind. I'm along the same thought points of you that I didn't mind that was her arc and that's how they ended the arc. I thought it was actually how Millie portrayed that and came across. It was very emotional. It was very touching.
Yeah.
And I just found myself smiling at the end and so happy for her. But then, okay, like I said, they missed a few strings that we could find out later on about. Okay, how come she has this thing with the snow that all of a sudden snow randomly appears inside buildings?
Right.
We didn't get anything explained about that, which hopefully we do. But the buildup was almost like the buildup for Clara, and that one made sense because of the explanation that it's she splintered off into the Doctor's timeline to help guide him and protect him in this and that. So that buildup made sense. Here, we're almost following some of the same writing points. The Doctor scanning her DNA and wondering about this and wondering about that and like tracking things and figuring stuff out. And really, there was no exact need for that.
Mm-hmm.
You could have handled it a little less dramatic, like dragging us along. I mean, yes, it was a MacGuffin, but I think the MacGuffin was bigger than it needed to be.
And actually, Russell said it was Rey in the Star Wars universe that was actually the inspiration to not make the reveal be, oh my gosh, it's the Master's daughter, or like you said,
right.
Something like that. Like he saw the whole Rey arc in the Disney Star Wars trilogy and said, yeah, no, we're not going that way. We're gonna make it something a little more, make the character just a little more common.
Which was fine.
However, I want to say something about her arc in general. I had posted at Christmas time when her first story aired how it was the first time, maybe the second time, I'm pretty sure it was the first time in 40 plus years of being a Doctor Who fan that I was moved to tears. And I work with special needs kids and I work with a lot of foster kids. In my, professionally as my day job, and the fact that they covered someone in the foster system and did it very accurately, insofar as that sort of that need that a person has to discover their true identity, without it being sort of my destiny that I'm actually the king, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff that we see with the the hero's journey. I'm talking about
just a general curiosity.
A general curiosity, that a child, and you are a child even as an adult, when you're thinking about those things, your parents, your lineage, they handled it very well and very sympathetically. And maybe just because I was close to the subject, I thought, wow, this was really, really moving, and probably an incredibly under appreciated detail in Empire of Death is watch Ruby's stepmother when Ruby is talking to her birth mother, because that's real life. I've seen that with my own eyes with real people, that no matter how happy you are for your foster child, the one that you've cared for and made your own, that birth mother walks through the door and it's all over. Like,
Yes.
that's the star of the show. And it's like, but I just worked all these years to get you here. And you've transferred that maternal love by literally flicking a switch. And it doesn't mean, they didn't portray it like she, forgot her stepmother, but there will always be the moment where the step parent, as much as they love that child and they've done everything for it, there's a moment where it changed. That they know that, I love my child. I'm glad they've discovered this, but I'm now second fiddle. And you can't help selfishly but feel, yeah, but what about me? And
Right.
and it's not a line of dialogue. It's not in the script. Russell didn't have to do it. This is to the actor's credit. Watch her face.
Yes.
It's all in her face, and she's in the background.
But she portrays it so well.
Mm-hmm.
I did notice that myself. I'm an adoptive parent myself, so it had a similar vein for me as well, because not that I foresee this ever happening in my situation, but it does linger in the back of my head that it's always a possibility that at some point my daughter will want to go visit or meet her biological mother.
It's natural. And it's natural for you to be both happy and sad at the exact same moment. Human beings are capable of being both. You're happy for the child because you know how much it means to them, but you're also sad because you just realize that, that I don't want to say sideline because that's not really true, but suddenly you're sharing the spotlight.
Right.
It
changes the scope of different things.
And there's more than just the child's emotions. It's your emotions and the birth mother or father's emotions and all that. Yeah, it's incredibly complicated, and yet we're talking about it on this television show, on this Disney Plus streaming series. So the people who are like dismissing this season as, it's just made for Disney or whatever, it's like, bro, you're missing some really deep stuff going on there.
Ruby getting all excited about finally getting to meet her birth mother, and then sharing her life, getting out the picture albums and telling the stories of everything that's happened over the past, I forget how old she's supposed to be, 21, something like that.
Yeah, 2021, something like that.
Yeah, over all these years, and and meet this, and we did this, and it just like the excitement about discovering a part of her life that has been missing, and just seeing everyone's reaction, and also to the doctor staying out of that moment, and she wants to bring him in, and he's like, no, this isn't for me. This isn't my part of my story. This is about you and everything about your life.
Yeah.
I'm staying out of this part because otherwise he knows it's going to become about him, and didn't want that to be the case.
Another running theme in this season, and even a touch with the David Tennant specials, is the idea of gods. And I say that with lowercase g, and it's plural, because there's very much a feeling that beings with superior intellect and abilities and powers and things above what what humans are capable of now would be viewed by us as gods. That there's something else out there that might be above us, and they're not portrayed as all powerful. They just have these really incredible powers. It allows the show to do a few interesting things. There's a little bit of commentary in there, of course. Russell always likes to have a bit of commentary in his stories, but it also gives a hero is only as good or as strong as the villain. You make the villains weak, and that's a little bit of what we saw in Jodie Whittaker's era, is quite often I found sometimes she went up against adversaries that didn't suit her doctor looking powerful. Right. Sometimes, and I thought what was refreshing after the first season was the first special they did was that she got a chance to battle the Daleks, because that's a known quantity in Doctor Who universe. It's the most well-known of the Doctor's villains. So we finally got to see her Doctor match up with something we could measure the Doctor against, and did very well. Well, it's the same thing. Now you've got Sutekh, who is a god, one of the gods, the top of them, in the group that we've been presented so far. And he there's genuine fear in his eyes, knowing that, geez, I got to deal with this guy again, because it's a god that's quite is all powerful, all powerful as we're allowed to explore in Doctor Who, and well realized. It was kind of funny. I saw a funny meme saying, we were just mentioning Clara and seeing the Doctor's timeline, and it's like, well, this character of Sutekh has been clinging on to the outside of the TARDIS for years and years and years. Why didn't Clara give him the clue? Like, she's seen everything. Why didn't she say, by the way, you got a stowaway on the outside of your TARDIS?
You might want to check the 73 yards around the ship.
Yeah. There's a lot of themes and metaphors in this season for those who want to find it. And that's, to me, is what sci-fi is about. And that, to me, is also why I give this an 8, as opposed to one of those people that just went on the internet and just said, oh, they lost me. I've been a fan for years, but this stuff is rubbish and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, shut up already. Stop. I'm so done with it. First off, if you're tuning into a kid's show to solve your life's problems in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, you need therapy, not Doctor Who.
Yeah.
If you're not happy watching that show, I watch Doctor Who for escapism, right? I put it on, and I don't expect it to be my psychiatrist. I expect it to take me out of the miserable existence I'm in on this planet for 45 minutes. And I don't care how he does it. Or I should say they, because it could even be Jodie.
Yep.
Or Joe Martin, for all I care. I want the Doctor to let me escape, the same way I would with Game of Thrones or Star Trek or any other show you might watch, right? You really just want to immerse yourself in another place or in somebody else's problems for a little while to forget your own misery. And I'm saying that kind of off the cuff just to be a bit humorous, but it is true. We go to the movies, we watch a TV show, hopefully to escape. Sometimes we go to learn. Quite often we go to be moved, and I don't think you could watch Ruby's story and not be moved. And if you weren't moved by it, well, quite honestly, maybe the performance wasn't for you, or quite honestly, like I said, maybe you're looking for something more than the show can really deliver for you.
Just get caught up in the moment.
Yeah. And I've always been a proponent of constructive criticism. That goes for people who email me about the convention or anything else I do in my life, at work, whatever. If my boss says to me, I need to talk to you about something, when it's constructive, he's got my ear, The last thing you want is someone just yelling at you or berating you. That's not constructive. Well, the same thing goes with fandom and how we talk to each other. I think just we live in a world in 2024 where we've degraded to the point where we just, bash each other a lot. And I'm guilty of that too. Sometimes I let my emotions get the best of me. But I think if someone said, like I was saying earlier, if you're saying something like, well, this episode didn't work for me, or, it did too many of these things and it lost me. Yeah, that's fine. You're allowed to say I didn't like it because XYZ. It's the people who just bash for the sake of bashing. I just have no tolerance for anymore. The world is so damn negative I don't need more of that.
No, no, not at all. And I'm along the same lines as if you can, if you're saying, okay, this didn't work because of this, this, and this, and if you did this way, maybe it'll work better. I can, okay, you've thought this out, and there's a reason behind it. That makes sense, and you're allowed to that, and I may agree with you or disagree with you, but you actually thought about it. If you sit down and said, I didn't like the fact that he was talking to babies, and
Right.
what does this show become? Do you remember the adipose?
Right. He was talking fat.
Yeah, like, seriously, people's fat molecules walking around and taking over London. These things happen. It's science fiction. Not everything's going to fit a logical, box. It sometimes you just have to go with it, and you're gonna have. I actually thought that starting off with Space Babies worked nicely because you started off with a softer, fun episode before you got into things that were a little more deeper and a little heavier, like Boom in '73.
Well, imagine that they started the season with 73, and you're this person scrolling through Disney Plus and going, "Oh yeah, I've heard of this show. I think I've heard of this show." The same way I did when I first started watching it. I thought it was Dr. No, and I just kind of this person just decides to put it on. They would be like, "What the hell is this?"
Right. And it would almost be like trying to jump in the middle of all the Marvel movies without watching in progressive order. Oh, great. Here's another one that I have to watch everything beforehand before I can watch this. And
yeah, I mean, as someone who isn't a huge fan of the Marvel universe, so, I'm a casual fan of it. One of the things that's daunting to me is I feel like I need like a guide or a roadmap to even, if I wanted to go further with it. I'm like, oh, geez, well, how do I do this? Like I need my hand held a bit, and I understand that with Doctor Who that it can be the same way. It's kind of one of the reasons I was surprised that they opened their time on the Disney Plus platform with 3 anniversary specials that had to appeal to old school fans like me, and then maybe kind of get some new people hooked on it. It was a curious decision. I mean, for me, yeah. I thought it worked, but it was a curious decision.
I enjoyed them. I never got your take on the 3 anniversary specials.
I really enjoyed them, actually. I thought, well, first off, I'm a huge fan of Rachel Talalay, who directed one of the specials. I think did she do 2 of them? I don't remember off the top of my head. Talalay is an excellent director, one of the best in Doctor Who history. And the performances were great. They do a lot of, they do a greatest hits package without it sort of being everything thrown in that would confuse the hell out of newbies.
Right.
So, they kind of hit a few marks. In the Star Beast, we have a monster that diehard fans know but never saw on the screen. And if you were new to the show, you'd be like, oh, I see. It's kind of like a fuzzy E.T. Oh, but wait a minute. It's actually the bad guy. Like, cool twists, cool fun twists. And great dialogue and stuff. And actually, I really enjoyed them.
I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the show, and I spoke to Dave about this when we were reviewing the specials, the Phineas and Ferb show. That there was a alien creature by the name of Meep.
Really?
Yes.
I wonder if it was a tip of the hat back, because Beep the Meep is actually going back some almost 40 years to a comic. And
it could very well be.
Yeah. And it was adapted from all the way back then. And I know there's plenty of Doctor Who fans that are now in the writing and comic book and television and film industry who sneak this stuff in all the time. So it wouldn't surprise me, if someone said, aha, I'm gonna sneak this in, or have a little fun or tip their cap. As a matter of fact, I was watching like a rerun of Law and Order, and there was a Doctor Who reference in one of them. I had to laugh.
Yeah, I like going on to some of these websites and Doctor Who references that in TV shows that you never realized, or in video games that you never realized, and all this, times like the TARDIS or characters will randomly appear. Like how many times has Doctor Who been referenced in The Simpsons? So,
oh my gosh, yeah.
But yeah, it's Cynthia did the giggle. That was the only one that she's credited with. Yeah, it's my guess is that they probably did go back to that because that's the kind of show Phineas and Ferb is. And the writers are very much of that kind of vein. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Like the Simpson writers and all that. Like there's certain places you would expect to get them dropped. Law and Order wasn't one of those.
That is this Law and Order is a lot different.
It's like those kind of like, if you're watching Big Bang Theory, you expect sci-fi references, of course. But you see two cops investigating a murder on the beat or something, you don't really expect that. But that's part of the joy of being a Doctor Who fan. It's like for a long time it was like the secret handshake.
Yes.
Like we were a member of a secret club. If you spotted a Doctor Who reference, you're like, holy cow, there's another one out there.
I still find it weird that it's not as much like that anymore.
No, not when Shooty Gott was on the side of a New York City subway train.
Or Matt Smith is headlining New York Comic Con.
And now is part of the Game of Thrones universe, which apparently has every single television viewer in history with their eyeballs on it on Sunday night. So,
something I want to go back to Russell T Davies reprising as headmaster. That as the showrunner. That one of my criticisms of the initial run in 2005 was the exile of anything in the past. And it was okay. We'll mention a few things, but we pretty much, very minimal connection to the past. Where this time around, to at least for me, to his credit, we had a lot of tie into the history of the show. In Rogue, wherever you get the little visions around of the previous doctors. And the Remembrance TARDIS, where for people like us, it's like just want to pause it and go, oh, I see that. Oh, Mel's holding onto the Seventh Doctor's vest, and there's the coat that the Sixth Doctor wore, and the amount of things, and the fact that the big villain was from the 1975 episode The Pyramid of Mars with Tom Baker, and they actually showed footage from it.
Yes, shockingly so. Yeah.
So
I'm of two minds about this. I was a little puzzled by this move, and so when the show was relaunched in 2005 with Russell's first time at the helm, he very wisely learned a lesson from the 1996 Doctor Who movie that was on Fox. It was an American co-production with Universal. And what happened when Matthew Jacobs wrote the script for that, they crammed a lot of that history in very quickly to try to bring the audience up to speed. And I think what happened, what they learned from that, what Russell learned from that, was that all it did was confuse people. And it ate up a bunch of very valuable screen time that their own hero wasn't on screen. The Eighth Doctor comes in like 20 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
So your lead actor is, sitting around waiting to come out on stage. So I had dinner with Phil Collinson a few years after that, after the 2005 launch, and he said I was also with two of the actors from the 96 movie, and he told them, and I was privileged enough to listen to their conversation. He said to them, without you guys, we wouldn't have been able to do what we do. I mean, first off, you sort of broke some new ground for some of the things that we wanted to do, but also Russell learned a very valuable lesson that don't cram it all in from the start. There's going to be a brand new audience. They don't care about that history. Right. The old fans will wait for it, and the new fans won't care about it. Now, with Disney, I thought he was going to do that again. And on hindsight, in reflection, I believe the reason he didn't, and I'm projecting a little here, the reason I think that he didn't was that the streaming services now and access to older shows, it's so easy now when you want to find something or you want to research something or you want to binge something. It wasn't available in 2005 like that. You'd have to go purchase the DVD or the VHS or something. Now you could just say, oh, I can click on this button and go see what this is all about.
Right. Or just type it into my phone and
right. Type it in your phone, your iPad, your browser, whatever it is. And you can very easily find those answers. So I think rather than go back to the formula that he did in 2005, I think he just kind of said, you know what? I'm not going there. I think that there is going to be a new audience, but I also think there's a pretty sizable existing audience that already knows the answers. So, and the audience they're going for on Disney is the next generation, the younger audience, which, by the way, they're getting. The younger audience, they're freaking smart. And they know 1,000 times better than you and I do as adults how to find that information. They are incredibly tech savvy. And guess what? They like that mystery. They like that discovery. I know when I found the show in 1983, 84, it was around the 20th anniversary of Doctor Who. And I was excited to discover the show that was celebrating 20 years. I thought to myself, I have so much that I can dig into with this show. I have 20 years worth of history that I can swim around in and not get bored. Well, imagine kids today with 60 years worth of history to swim around in. It's fantastic.
And they don't have to wait for the latest edition of Doctor Who magazine to arrive in their mailbox to be able to research some of that.
Well, it's funny you say that because when I first found the show in the early 80s, I was in a bookstore where I stumbled across a Starlog reprinting of the Radio Times 20th anniversary magazine, which had like an episode guide and interviews, and it really was a pretty handy way for me to go, oh, that's who this is. Oh, look what this is. Oh, and then it explained a bunch of things to me, and you know what it also did? Got me excited to go discover these other things. I want to go find out who that crab thing is. I want to go find out who this girl in this dress is or whatever. Like each visual in that magazine was a tease for me to go and hopefully see that episode. And when I got to it, I got excited. Now, not to be the old man on the lawn, but now every kid who wants to discover the show has it right at their fingertips, right? If you just type in Doctor Who episode guide into a search engine, you're going to get 18 million of them, and they're all going to be fantastic and get you all the information you need right at your fingertips. As a matter of fact, more than I could ever dream of, because you could click on it, find out when it was broadcast, where to find it on the internet, how to stream it, who was in it, why is it relevant. You might even get information, like cool, fun information that Starlog just didn't have. They just put a little story synopsis in it.
Right, and you make little references, and there was this in the background or this connection. Like it wasn't.
Well, Matthew, they didn't warn me they would be singing in the Gunfighters.
Well, no, no, they did not. But the fact that one of the costumes that was from the Third Doctor episode, and I forget off the top of my head which one it is, but it shows up in Star Wars. Actually, it wasn't even the Third Doctor episode, was it?
That was the first Doctor episode.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because they all rented from the same place. And I'll give you a little crazy old school Doctor Who trivia and maybe why it wound up in Star Wars, in Empire Strikes Back, as well as in 10th Planet. The BBC does not own the original William Hartnell or Patrick Troughton costumes from the 60s because they rented them. Imagine that. Imagine that they do not own the first Doctor's costume from 1963. As a matter of fact, they have no clue where it is because when they were done with it, they just turned it back in. And for all we know, it went to a stage play a week later or, a period
cut up
drama
and put into something else. And
yeah. That's crazy to me. It's a level of iconic, that those pieces of clothing, and yet we don't have them.
Wow.
You know what we do have, though? The receipt for it. Typical BBC, right?
Yeah, they save the receipts for everything.
Yeah, got the receipt for it. Like, I remember one time Fraser Hines said to me, yeah, they don't have my episode, but they have my pay stub. Which is crazy.
That's funny. Yeah, we still have yet to see his original episode.
Yeah.
No Highlanders out there, but we can, he can prove that he got paid for it.
But you can see his tax filings.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. All right, let me just a couple last questions for you.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite episode?
I think Boom is my favorite of the season. Although I think it's easier for me to point to a couple things that I didn't like because I think most of the season was pretty even for me. I think Boom was my favorite. And like I said, I think Space Babies as an opener was, do I see myself saying, you know what I'm putting on tonight? Space Babies. Like, that's, it's one of those things. Like, it would be on a rewatch if I was doing the whole season,
Yeah.
But I just like a rando episode because tonight I want to watch a Doctor Who episode. It would probably not be on the list. However, I am a little weird, and occasionally I start to watch like the bad episodes just because I've watched the good ones so many times.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe like in 10 years time, I'll be like, yeah, I've been on the Space Babies kick lately. And my friends will laugh at me or something. But I really liked Boom because I thought it was it was an exciting and thrilling episode. I liked the performances. I liked the dialogue. It was just, and it was an efficient episode. The thing takes place in a quarry, and yet it holds your attention. It doesn't have to go any place or show you anything amazing. It's proof that great dialogue or great performances or a good concept will hold your attention. You don't need all the bells and whistles.
A Doctor Who episode taking place in a quarry? Never.
Right. Yeah. So that's my pick. Do you have a favorite for this season?
I'm gonna have to go with Boom as well.
All right.
It was like you said. It's smart.
Yeah.
It's intellectual. It holds you. Yeah.
I feel a little guilty though because what I feel guilty about is the sort of Russell haters going, see, it was the Moffat episode,
Oh,
and
geez. I didn't even want to go there.
Oh my God, stop. So that's what I feel bad about. But hey, listen, the guy wrote a great story. It's just as simple as that.
But you look back at, like you said, Moffat's individual episodes, whenever Russell was head runner, and back in the Eccleston and Tennant eras,
all strong.
And they're, been really, really strong episodes.
Right. And when he was showrunner, there were some episodes that weren't good because that is the problem when you're the showrunner. every week can't be a home run. Try as you might. When you're putting a whole season together, a whole series together, a whole era together, you throw a lot of things against the wall. Some stick, some don't. It's just the nature of what you do.
It's a lot easier to be given, we need this, this, and this, and then run with it, than being the one to say that I need this, I need this, I need this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this, and telling other people what to do. It's a lot easier to receive the instructions, and say, okay, go with it from here.
Well, and also to focus on a singular task, right? Okay, right. So I'm doing the third episode, and it's got to be a bottle episode, and okay, here's the parameters. Great. Okay, I'll come back with a script, because you can be singularly focused at that point. I also think Stephen Moffat's one of those guys, and I think this is the reason why he returned to the show quickly. Is that he's a guy who always has a story in his head. I think it's that's his genius.
Yeah.
Is that if you just walked up to him on the street and said, Stephen Moffat, great to meet you. Real quick, give me a cool story idea. He'll be like, yeah, guy walking down the street, walks up to a guy, doesn't know, like he'll just come up with a story, right? Like he'll make something up on the spot, and you'll go, damn, that's compelling. Like it's his gift. It's his talent.
Absolutely. I think he's a fantastic storyteller. And who would you say was probably like the MVP character of the season?
Wow, that is really a tough one, because there's a lot of people I really like this season. And I think it would be easy to say Ncuti, because obviously the show is hinged on the Doctor, right?
Of course.
But that also could have fallen on its face, and it didn't. He's really sold me on being the Doctor. I really enjoy him. So, with the caveat that is way too obvious an answer, let me see if I can just dig around here and think of somebody I really like. I'm going to say it just to piss people off. I love the Maestro. I love the whole over-the-top, larger-than-life, music as a weapon kind of thing. It rides the line of corny, but I thought it was fun. It's just that simple.
Okay, although that's good. I enjoyed the Maestro. I thought
a little shouty at times, but you know what? The great American philosopher Steven Tyler of Aerosmith once said, "Anything worth doing is worth overdoing."
Yes. And I enjoyed the fact that the secret chord to put that character to bay was the one chord from the Beatles.
Yeah.
Across the universe, I think it was. So
I mean, what's amazing too, what I liked, I know a few Beatles fans, they take exception maybe with a little bit of the performances, or there's a few historical inaccuracies or whatever. And, we're not watching a documentary. We're watching a television drama.
Exactly.
But I thought it was so British of Doctor Who to have the Beatles kind of save the universe.
Absolutely.
That's as Doctor Who and as British as you can get. I mean, if you just throw a little mix of James Bond in there, you would hit all the notes, or Monty Python or something.
I'm surprised we didn't get those.
Okay. One of my favorite moments from this year was Ncuti singing Willy Wonka.
Oh, yes.
It's a little throwaway thing, but so much of the Doctor and Willy Wonka are the same character, that sort of mystery man who, I don't know, it's tough to explain, and it was just a level of charming.
It's a nice little connective piece that just, again, explains his Doctor.
Well, yeah, it's like a character moment, right? Yeah. Like I remember Gene Wilder once said that his agreement to take the part way back in 1971 He said, I'll take the role if in the opening scene I walk out with a cane and I'm limping. And then I throw the cane away and I tumble and I jump up. And it would make the audience know that anything is possible, that I'm not to be trusted, that, you know, that it's not everything you see should be taken seriously.
Right.
That's the Doctor.
Absolutely.
Right? That person that is going to throw you a curveball that you don't expect, and that's part of the magic. And so to me, that was a great metaphor this year.
So I'm going to go with my character of Carla Sunday.
Nice. Yeah, then there's still stuff to learn there, isn't there?
Yeah, the foster mother, she was captivating when she was on screen.
Yeah.
There's still more that we can get from that character.
Yep.
But she also helped carry the storyline, or carry the arc of Ruby, that, you know, if we didn't have that motherly character there who just kept on showing up, I don't think we'd have completely the same impact at the end.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the fact that, you know, this is my child, you know, I don't care what army it is or what government says I can't be there. I'm going to be there for my child.
Right. And also, you know, Russell played that note with Rose's mom.
Yes.
You know, for a couple seasons, and it kind of worked. Her extra focus back then worked. You can't play that note again and expect the audience to not go, well, we've seen this already. So they had to use Ruby's mom in a way that we got those things, those moments that we needed, but without it being like, we've seen this before. So they had to do it a little bit differently. And maybe in addition to my own personal feelings about the moment, you know, where Ruby meets her biological mother that I was mentioning earlier, but maybe also that's what separates it, right? That's also what differentiates it from the Rose storyline.
Yeah.
You know, he had to put some daylight between the two, and I think that really worked.
Oh, absolutely. And favorite moment, it's hard for me to say. Maybe because I just watched it over this past weekend. But I'm just gonna go with this one at the moment, is when the Doctor is talking to Sutek and saying, you know, I'm not like you. I am not going to be the bringer of death anymore, and kind of redefining this character that you even posted a meme about this, about you know, wherever the Doctor goes, death follows, and kind of saying, I don't want to be that character anymore. Now, if we see that happen, you know, we'll yet to be seen, but, you know, just kind of redefining the parameters of who this character can be.
Yes, it's like a reset button, especially in the way that Ncuti is playing the Doctor, right? We don't want Ncuti to be the bringer of death. We want the opposite. We want there to be sunshine now, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe because it's a Disney day. I don't know. And maybe it's been tailored that way deliberately for our friends at Disney Plus. But it also allows the character to grow and change, which is 60 years of a television. We can't keep making the same damn thing.
Yep.
I mean, speaking of franchises on Disney, Star Wars, one of the challenges it faces is that it has a choice. When it tries to break out of the storytelling that it's comfortable with, fans get pissed off. But then it goes back to its comfortable place, and then fans go, but we've seen this already. It's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Doctor Who is trying to figure out a way to not be like, well, we've seen this already. As I just mentioned, with Russell not doing his greatest hits package and just recycling, you know, the Christopher Eccleston season with the Rose being the focus, and then there's the mom and the boyfriend and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you pointed out too that he's trying to shake off this darkness, this bringer of death. I wrote an entire essay in the Villains of Doctor Who book that I contributed to about the Doctor being the bad guy in the story. I mean, I did it sort of tongue in cheek, but there is a case to be made for fun and frolic with your friends when there's perhaps adult beverages and you're hanging out and looking for something to talk about. Talk about the fact that your favorite character may be the bad guy in the story. If for no other reason than the exercise is important for self-reflection, right? Like a smart person sometimes comes home from a day of work or an argument with their significant other or something. And if you're smart, you reflect on it, right? You think back, could I have done something differently? Was I the bad guy in the story?
Right.
And I learned that from watching Doctor Who. Like, sometimes you've got to stop and think, did I do the wrong thing? And yeah, that's what I take away from that. So I'm glad you pointed that out.
The self-evaluation is always important.
Of course.
Ken, I appreciate you being on.
And I appreciate you letting me ramble for the last hour.
Oh, my pleasure. I just like you, I enjoy talking about this show. I hope our listeners enjoy it as much. If you haven't checked it out, please do, because I personally think it has been some fantastic, enjoyable television to watch. And
it's different than anything else you'll probably ever see on television.
And
there's a reason it's been on so long, and that is it's just not the same old stuff.
Right. So we'll have to have you back on again to continue this conversation.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
Thank you, Ken. And let people know, where can we find out about Li Who and yourself?
Sure. So the Long Island Doctor Who convention happens in August here on Long Island, and it's longislanddoctorwho.com, all spelled out. longislanddoctorwho.com has all the information on when, where, who's going to be there, how to get in, all that kind of stuff. And then I'm the editor and contributor to a book called The Companions of Doctor Who, which came out a couple of months ago. And it's a series of essays by a distinguished group of writers where we basically wax poetically about our favorite companions and what makes them important or what makes them interesting. And it's a really diverse group of people who I have some professional people who work professionally in television and film, as well as some who analyze it from almost a clinical analysis of trauma theory and race relations and all kinds of things. There's a little something for everybody in there, whether it's you want to have something a little light and fun or something a little bit deeper. So hopefully you'll check that out. And it's available from reputable and not so reputable booksellers everywhere.
It's definitely worth checking out. Your essays were quite enjoyable.
Thanks.
You're quite welcome. And thank you again.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matthew.
Yeah, make sure to join our conversation on social networks. Let us know what you thought about this latest season of Doctor Who. Like I said, at the top of the show, it's at WD Magic Cast, pretty much everywhere. I want to thank you for your time. I know how little time we all have these days, and the fact that we got to spend some time together means a lot to me, to us over here at WD Magic Cast. We really, truly appreciate it. If we could just ask, please go online, give us a rating review. We have all 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify at the moment. We need more. Keep them coming. The more reviews we get, particularly of the 5-star type, the more that those podcatchers will do to promote our episodes. Speaking of promoting, feel free to share out a link on your social network of your favorite episode, this episode, and let people know about WD Magic Cast, because Walt believed in a big Disney family, and so do I. Don't forget to subscribe to the show while you're at it. This way you always know when new episodes are posted. While you're at it, also consider becoming a premium subscriber. Truly help the show out that way. You can do this over at the Spotify podcaster website. Links are in the show notes for all of that. Don't forget to also check out merchandise shop as well. Like I said, get yourself some cool WD Magic Cast stuff there. Because remember, this show is brought to you by listeners like you. Whatever fate you're facing out there, whatever troubles may seem to be bothering you, whatever is weighing on you in life, don't give up. Don't let it win. You are special. You are unique. You are a light in this world. You probably mean more than you realize to the people around you. You're probably touching someone's life right now in a way that you do not expect. You are important. You are an individual. There's no one like you, and that's for a good reason, because the world needs you in it. Never give up. Never give in. Be your own hero and let your light shine for the entire world to see and realize how special you are. But if you do need help, don't be afraid to ask. There's someone out there. You may not know them. You may not even know their name yet. But they're willing to help you and take this journey with you. I'd like to end this week's show with a quote from Walt Disney himself. The growth of television as a medium of mass communication amongst people around the earth cannot be halted nor much longer delayed. And eventually even land will want... Let me start that again. I'm sorry. And eventually every land will want to share in this international audiovisual exchange of ideas, of pleasurable entertainment and closer neighborliness. Again, that's from Walt Disney. Thank you again for listening, everyone, and I'll see you next time.